turn the recording on and we can get started. One of the main reasons for this morning was to talk about the VHF field contest next weekend. And since Bruce is our resident contester, we thought that would be a good avenue for him to give some pointers and what's going on with it. Rob, do you have anything for the good of the group here first?
Sure. Do you want to start with the pledge as usual?
We might as well. You want to start the pledge?
Okay. Yep. Yep. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for keeping it under God.
And Dave, I'll go to share screen. There we go. Going to share screen. And is that visible?
Yes.
Okay, so training calendar, upcoming events. For January, we started the ARES membership renewals. We have 155 people so far that have renewed their membership for 2021. Thank you for everybody participating in that. The general meeting, of course, is today. Next weekend, the ARRL VHF contest happens. It's a 3 times a year event. And for local guidance or suggestions, we've got the email that went out a week ago and again this morning. And I pasted the instructions, the guidance into the sdgares.net website, put it on a news page for VHF contest tips. Some people, despite the pandemic, are going to be heading out to Quartzsite for what they're calling Quartz Pause this year, a scaled down version of the annual Quartz Fest, which is primarily an RV event. I know a lot of tenters go out there and they're trying to put together the schedule of seminars or all the events they're going to be having out there in the desert. And so if you want more information on that, see the website quartzfest.org. In a couple of weeks, we're going to have a special presentation by a Southern California representative of the National Traffic System, which is like radiograms going across back and forth the country. That'll be Kate Hutton, K6HTN, presenting that to us. And end of the month, we've got Winter Field Day. There's one change to the Winter Field Day rules from last year. You can now have a group score. And for more information on that, see winterfieldday.com. It's primarily an HF event, much smaller version of the National Summer ARRL Field Day. So this is sponsored by a different organization that just does the Winter Field Day event in order to promote in cold climates, still being able to communicate despite the weather. Talking about just before the we got started, the QSO Today Ham Fest Virtual Expo is coming up on March 13th and 14th. If you're on their mailing list, you already know about this. From that email promotion, it explains that the dates are March 13th and 14th. That is probably a San Diego ARES meeting weekend. And what we did last year was bump the ARES meeting over to deconflict from the QSO Today Expo, which so many people are participating in. And as mentioned, it's not free this year. It's $10 for early bird tickets. And the website QSO Today, hamexpo.com. 60 internet advertisement. The the 60 meter net is still going well. We've got about 15 to 20 check-ins every week. We like the 60 meter net because if you're a HF person, you know that's 75 meters is usable after mid-morning. So sometimes, depending upon conditions, 60 meters works well. Thursday nets, we've got the usual nets on Thursday evenings, and we are just telling everybody that we've got an alternate net set up just in case all the OTI repeaters go out. Palomar Valley Center Amateur Radio Club has graciously allowed us to use their website, or their repeater rather, on 146.235. A reminder of where ARES documents are located. We've got the sdgares.net website, which has a comm plan and the task book. And we have the groups.io web discussion email reflector, which has a main group and the WinLink subgroup. And we have San Diego ARES YouTube channel where we keep meeting recordings and WinLink training clips. Task book sign-offs, if you have to do any task book sign-offs, want any done, contact any emergency coordinator. It doesn't have to be yours, either the EC or the assistant EC for sign-offs. And upon completion of each page, each level, send the task book page to me, K6RJF. In WinLink news, thank you, Munir, for putting up K6AQ-10. Munir, did I get that call sign right, K6AQ-10?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's on 431.020, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and then so much appreciated putting that in the UHF band so that we can get away from the very crowded VHF packet channels with the VAR FM. If you're a VAR WinLink person, you know that recent releases of VAR FM have added DigiPeat capability, and VAR FM is very, very fast. And as a reminder, we promote WinLink to support hospitals and other served agencies during emergencies. If you are not a WinLink person and would like to get started with it, ask any WinLink person or K6AQ or K6RGF, and we will help you get started with WinLink. You don't need to have any radio capability to do that yet. You can just start with the software, learn the software, and then graduate from there into the RF world. And Dave, that's all I have, K6RJF.
All right. Bruce said he was without internet this morning, so he was going to try and call in by phone. So, Bruce, if you are there, good morning. It must not be him that dialed in then. All right, I don't have a lot this morning because I was counting on Bruce doing his contesting program that he normally has on how to get ahead in the contest and how different tricks to use to try and score and some general rules for what's going on. But Noel has a hand up, so what's on your mind this morning?
Oh, that was something earlier. Had no mind. Sorry.
All right. We can lower your hand there. I guess until we see if we can hear from Bruce here this morning, I haven't got anything back from him. How's everybody doing in general? Just general with the COVID and everything else? Are people holding up okay? Any problems, anything that people need help with? Just something that we can all do together? Jay?
We were also supposed to do a EC Roundtable today. Is that correct?
Correct.
We should get started with that, or in lieu of Bruce's appearance. Just a thought.
Again, with Bruce being the SEC, that's really his thing. I mean, that's what we were looking at for him to take care of this morning. But when he's without internet, that makes it a little tougher.
Yeah. What this N6CUX, what might be interesting to you is I actually received a first dose of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine on Wednesday because I'm in a nursing facility currently. It's starting to get out, at least that community at this point.
Oh, good. Dennis?
Yeah, since we're spending a little time here messing around, has anybody heard of any public service events that might be going on in the relatively near future? I know that's a big holdup for a lot of folks in getting their task books signed off, at least some of the ones that I have. Back to you.
Rob, have you heard of any? You and Roger usually keep track of all the public service things going on.
There might be some endurance runs coming up, but all scheduling for those is tentative right now.
That's what I was hearing as well.
You got one person with a hand up, Dan in San Joaquin Valley, and maybe later we can do new members also.
Exactly. Dan, good morning. Good to have you here.
I want to thank you for allowing me to show up. And I do have a question about a pandemic-related question regarding ARES, which is, I was going to say, do any of your jurisdictions, and I realized the jurisdiction is San Diego County, right?
Correct.
Okay, well, what I'm curious about is in any jurisdictions, are any of the vaccination, whoever's determining how to implement the vaccination campaign, have any of them offered ARES groups vaccinations as part of the tier 1A or 1B or 1C?
No.
Process?
No, I have been in contact with them and they have not offered anything as of yet. About a year and a half ago during our hospital drill, one of the things they did was mass inoculations against a aerosol attack of anthrax. And they were doing mass inoculations against that and setting up pods to do that, which is similar to what they are thinking about doing this time, but rather than setting up separate pods, it'll be done at different facilities. And ARES was involved in that, just traffic control and other things going on. But so far, I have not heard anything about them using ARES this time, which we'll just have to wait and see.
Okay, well, we're a couple sections north of you, and I got word yesterday that one of our counties asked one of the two ARES groups in that county if they would like to start getting their vaccinations as part of the, medical worker corps stroke first responders, because they, the local hospital and police department are sort of their dual AHJs within the county under the auspices of the county OES office. And I was fascinated by that. I've been a little bit involved in the distribution here in the, well, no, I shouldn't say that. That was wrong. I discovered that I was participating as a vaccinee in the the Yosemite Public Health District, which comprises Yosemite National Park, Mariposa County, Tuolumne County, and Mono counties. And that was a little alarming to me because I'm on the roster as a disaster, DVM, disaster volunteer medical worker as a current EMT. And, hopefully if it comes to anything, I'll just be helping expedite the vaccination campaign or serving in a surge facility, which means we really run into problems if we get a surge up here that bad.
Correct. Yeah, I haven't talked to the actual people at the MOC directly. It's just sort of been roundabout. So I probably should try and get hold of them and see what their thoughts are, because if something else were to happen during this time and we would get called out, it would be good to have us all in in good shape. So something I can look into.
Are you tracking who among your membership is experiencing COVID? No, they call it an inoculation of all things, but has anybody been declared ill with COVID-19?
We had one die from it.
Oh, that's more than enough.
Yeah.
Mike Curran.
Mike Aaron?
Yeah.
Okay. Boy.
Yeah, that was early on too. So yeah, we've had a couple other people get sick. Some friends of ours have been sick with it, but nothing super serious. So one guy got it back in early part of the year, and he's still weak from it. It's been several months, and still very, very weak.
Yeah, people underestimate the long-term debilitation that's prevalent in so many survivors. I think that's probably somewhat age-related, or age and pre-existing condition. Okay, thank you. I'll mute myself.
Dave? Hello, Dave.
Hello.
Hi, it's John Hammond. I got it in December, and I know about the weakness, and I hope to get rid of it someday.
Yeah.
So I'm doing good, but man, it just wipes you out.
Yeah. This friend of mine that got it, he ended up pretty sick for a while, and then one of his brothers ended up with it, and his brother ended up passing away from it. So it seemed to be sort of family, family oriented. Genetically, maybe. So hopefully that's.
Hey, John, it's great to have you back with us after going through all that.
And I see Bruce is here. Good morning.
Making sure you're able to hear me okay.
Yes, we can.
I'm sorry, folks. I'm joining you live from McDonald's.
Okay.
Well, the first stop was the San Diego Public Library, but apparently they don't support Zoom meetings. And I guess that makes sense because everybody would be camped out in front of the San Diego Public Library, even though they're closed, trying to use their free public internet. So instead, I'm not in the drive-through. It might be noisy. The windows are rolled up, and I'm siphoning a tiny little bit of the McDonald's Enterprise network. So I apologize. It was really interesting. We were supposed to have been restored about 8:30, 9 o'clock this morning at the latest, and what I was seeing was like original satellite internet type of latency, 1,000 milliseconds here, 3,000 milliseconds there. And the catch-22 to how quickly technology will fail you, and I'm throwing a rock to be sure, but I'm not trying to embarrass them. When you have children, and when you have a 25 gig family plan for your internet access via your cell phone, you think that you would theoretically be able to parse that out amongst the kids and dad, and you'd have 5 gigs apiece, right?
No.
Well, yeah, no. So what I had left over was what AT&T considers to be their endless data, but once you hit 25 gig, what they used to do was they would throttle the connection from a bandwidth perspective at their discretion. And it used to be that way for real. So if you weren't in a shopping mall, if you weren't in a public airport, and you were just somewhere near a cell tower in an average neighborhood, you might see a speed reduction, you might see bandwidth throttling, and it wasn't such a big deal. But what they've done over the last 4 or 5 years, they've absolutely just thrown the rock at you. So when we hit the 25 gig, and they warn you adequately before you get there, when you hit your allotment for the month, the speed does go down to less than dial-up modem speeds back in like a 2400 baud day. So plus the latency. So it's not even remotely possible to get a bridged internet connection or share your Wi-Fi from your phone with your computer, laptop, or whatever else. And of course, my plan doesn't reset until January the 11th. So Here we are laughing at people on a video conference in front of McDonald's. Good morning, and I'm sorry that I'm late.
That's okay. It's okay. That's why I have a hotspot from the cell phone company just to fill me in, and that's separate from my plan, and it sort of takes precedence over some of the other things as well.
Well, believe me, I thought I had the diversity there because I've got my work cell phone, which is through T-Mobile. But as some of you know, I, from home, have a, basically they're little extender devices that they call them, because my coverage at home with AT&T is already kind of quirky, but my coverage from home from T-Mobile is exceptionally poor. So I've got my little boxes that I usually take out to the Miramar Air Show that sometimes give us an advantage and keep us running up on AT&T for the internet, or not AT&T, but T-Mobile, and sometimes not. But those weren't working this morning either. Apparently, those are no longer supported. So I need to contact T-Mobile to find out what I need to do to get a new set that will work with their new infrastructure. And I wasn't aware of that. It was the first time I've had to use those since we've actually used them for Miramar, and since we missed Miramar last year. I would have found out last year that they weren't functional. So cascade errors, but here we are, and things work, and technology is sometimes challenging. And again, good morning, folks.
Okay, Roger has his hand up. Go ahead, Roger.
Do you get fries with that?
Yeah, I was waiting for something like that to happen. In fact, I'm kind of waiting for someone to say, are you spying on us? Because, you know, there's at least a dozen people with things up on the screen, not just. But what's also so funny is I'm 2 cars down from someone else that's watching the movie, so they shouldn't complain too much.
All right, Rob has covered his presentation on upcoming events and training, and so we're waiting for you for get things started here with anything you have this morning.
And just one more comment from Rob is that the outcomes of the EC Roundtable will be incorporated into the ARES comm plan. We list all the ECs in there and a bunch of other emergency information. So later this month, we'll take the results of this meeting and put them into the plan. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. So part of the goal for this morning's meeting is certainly to go out and talk about areas of opportunity and improvement within the organization locally in our served area, or areas if we count Imperial. Good morning, Jay. The challenge, of course, is now that we're working in a COVID environment, which is kind of changing the dynamics a little bit about what we do, what we can do, and to be very honest, what we can safely do. And that's probably the biggest add that I think that we can put into the mix. And we've had discussions previously about how we would support, could support, not just the hospitals, not just the healthcare systems, not just the MOC, but, you know, what do we do in a very less than typical environment where now our health, our welfare, and our safety above and beyond what it would normally be from a fire-related event, an earthquake-related event, you know, some other natural disaster that you might get a call out for. You know, all of those things are safety considerations and factors as well. Now we've got something invisible that we could be impacted by. And I got to be very honest with you, I'm not going to be terribly surprised if folks say that they want to change what they do, how they do, what they're willing to support or be supportive of. As an example, I mean, just with the virus, not trying to sway a conversation in either direction, but just with the virus itself, just as related to vaccines, I don't know whether anyone else is listening to, watching the news, because sometimes, without getting political, sometimes the news is an interesting place to be and an interesting place to get information from these days, because it's not always what I would expect. It's not always what I would expect to go out and be the outlet to serve the folks that just need the core facts. But there's a growing number of healthcare individuals that aren't getting a lot of press anymore that work in hospitals, that are part of an environment where they are, you know, in a healthcare setting, healthcare extended support setting. They've got hospice type facilities. They've got home and elderly care that they work in, not just a hospital or a clinic. And it's like there's two sides of that fence that are very dramatic. One side is, damn it, give me that vaccine as soon as possible. But the other side of that is, oh, hell no, I don't want that vaccine. It was, you know, developed too quickly. I'm not confident that it went through all the rigors it should have been. And oh, by the way, everyone's got to hold harmless on this, the vaccine manufacturers plus the US government. So it's a weird place to be. And when I hear things like that and they're in that position and they're concerned about their health one way or the other, you know, I'm in the same boat. And I'm trying not to go too far off track here, but what I'm saying to you is that the dynamics of where we're at right now are very, very fluid. If we get a call out and you're being asked to go to a hospital, are you going to be willing to don a bunny suit, depending on what it is that they're doing for support? I think that they're going to say that's not going to ever be necessary, because if it got to that level, they would be restricting the number of employees that are working in the environment. I don't think that we'll ever get to the point where they're going to say that if you want to work in a healthcare environment and support healthcare, that you could be putting yourself in danger. I don't think they would draw volunteers in for that, but they might. And they might say, if you're a volunteer, you know, here's a waiver and you're volunteering to do something, and you may end up with a problem after the fact. You may end up getting the virus, as an example. They may end up saying, as volunteers, and this is a real possibility, I think, they may end up saying as volunteers to work in healthcare or work in a healthcare facility or even support in your role from ARES or some other community support function, not ARES, you may end up having to show proof of vaccination. These are all interesting possibilities that are being discussed from not just, you know, an ARES focused perspective, but from community support, where you've got folks that are coming in, doing a function, whether it's cleaning the swimming pool, taking out the trash, or providing emergency communications, whatever it happens to be. So these are interesting times to be in right now. And it sounds like very much so, depending on what you look at for the yardstick, where we get back to what they're calling or thinking that they're calling normal. It's going to be certainly a matter of months, probably through the rest of this year. And then depending on which pundit you want to listen to or believe, some of the folks are saying we could be in this thing till 2022, 2023. So weird place to be, interesting place to be, maybe a good place to be, not really sure. So with that, think about how you would support, what you would be willing to support, and think about potentially that the shift may be different from what we've talked about, drilled for previously. Maybe we're going to be supporting a different agency. In addition to medical, maybe we'd be supporting fire, maybe we would be supporting law enforcement, and maybe it would even fall back to more of a grassroots, loose organizationally commitment to supporting other communication groups. There are, as we've talked about over the years, a number of community and neighborhood folks that have very good community support plans, but their support plans typically don't extend beyond, as an example, the use of handy talkies, usually on VHF or UHF frequencies, and don't normally provide that next hop, if you will, if you think about this in a networking perspective. Don't provide that next hop to go out and be able to get out of the neighborhood and out of the community to maybe city, county, state, or federal authorities in case that group is calling for support or needs something and phones are not working and other short-range communications are not functioning correctly. So they might need someone to go out and be the next layer of communication that they're relaying their needs to, and somebody else needs to get on a higher power VHF. Maybe somebody needs to get on a UHF system that's set up. Maybe someone needs to get on an HF system and start, sending data and asking for things from a place where they're able to communicate to outside the area. A number of things we could be doing. So think about the mission being potentially different. Think about how, as an example, you're working already, your capabilities are. Think about always expanding your capabilities. And then think about how our neighborhood functions, if you will, have changed a little bit, perhaps. I know we've got some changes in ECs as an example, potentially, because we've got some folks that are either busy, down, have other things going on as far as life, and maybe some of them are still ill and recovering from things. So from the dynamics perspective, think about that too. And, we joked about this over the last several years, but with the upcoming event next weekend for the ARRL VHF contest that we like to also leverage as a functional comms check, lacking a better description, and certainly a simplex mapping event to find out where you can talk and how well you can talk on different equipment and different bands. It's also the opportunity to make sure that you're able to, as members, as part of a EC group or a community neighborhood, if you will, make sure you're able to talk as individuals to your assigned DCs or DEC. And then if that EC or DEC is not available, we've discussed this, but I'm not sure we've ever really flushed it out. And I was talking to Dave about this a little over a week ago. We should be pursuing if that EC is not there, and we pretend that would be the case next week, we want to make sure that folks are not just reaching out in their areas of responsibility or organization to their own EC or DEC, but that they can reach beyond that they can talk to another EC or DEC if the need arises, and vice versa. We want to make sure the ECs and DECs can do the same. So it isn't just a matter of talking to your immediate partner, if you will, or your immediate peer, again, in networking, but make sure you can go out and talk to the next hop or the next router, as the case might be. Does that all make sense?
Yes, very much.
Okay. I'll try not to be long-winded. So the other part of this dialogue today is not just to think about the things that I've already brought up and think about how that would impact you, but also, so let's start discussing what we can do to improve organizationally. And obviously we're doing technology-related things as far as our equipment, as far as our digital communications capabilities go. But I really, really, really don't want to fall back and forget that the most basic form of communication is the $10 Baofeng, joking or not joking aside, providing you know how to program it, providing it's making an RF, and providing it can talk a half a mile to 5 miles down the road to somebody else potentially. And where I'm going with that, not jokingly, is FM simplex for most of us is going to be the most common denominator for communications. All the fancy stuff can be different. If you got an HF radio, great. You got sideband, great. You got various digital capabilities, outstanding and stellar. But just for us to get on the air, if everything suddenly disappears, and especially if you're doing something that requires you to bug out of your house because of whatever the situation might be. For a lot of us, the second that we walk out of our house, we lose a great amount of our communication capability. So do we have a Go Kit? Is our Go Kit functional? Is our Go Kit capable of supporting operations for a matter of at least hours, if not longer? Do we have handhelds that we can literally, if we needed to, we could walk out of the house with a handheld and hopefully at least a battery pack or two that are extras, and maybe a better antenna than what the handheld comes with? Because you might end up in a shaking event having to leave your house for obvious reasons. And again, for a lot of us, myself included, I'm going to lose a very significant portion of my capabilities immediately when I walk away from my house. If my vehicle is available, I've got my contingent of radio gear that's either in the vehicle already or that I can deploy in the vehicle in a matter of maybe 30 minutes at the very most for the bigger stuff. Do I always have a handheld or two that's ready to go with extra batteries? Absolutely, 100%. And that's part of that quicker to go kit maybe that we should all be thinking about too, where it's not the conventional, I've got my boxes full of stuff, I've got my boxes that have batteries, I got my boxes that have computers. You know, the quicker to go kit is quite literally like the fanny pack, couple of handhelds that you've got that are always up to date as far as programming, some batteries, you know, notepad to write on, things like that, and maybe some small food, drink, snacks, and beverages. So if you needed to get out of your home, if you needed to go out and run for the door or do something, you've always got something that you've got with you that gives you at least limited initial capabilities to support yourself, help yourself in case you need assistance, hopefully, as well as give yourself some snacks and treats and whatever else that you need to go out and maintain what you need to go out and do. And for a lot of folks, to be very honest, sometimes that includes their medications for a couple of days at a minimum as well. So if they don't already have that with them whenever they travel, whenever they leave home, whenever they walk out the door, whenever they go on a bike ride, that's always another consideration that I think is very worthy. Again, I'm just jokingly calling that the quicker to go kit, kind of like the quicker Swiffer picker upper, you know, paper towel wise. Doesn't always have to be a go kit that everybody's thinking about in the conventional sense. It could be something literally like your man purse, making a joke about that. But I think that's always worthwhile in having. Everybody else is really focused and they hear go kit, they think go kit, and no, if it requires a dolly to go out and move things around, that's probably not your best asset. Questions so far or comments so far? Danny, yes. The Progresso soups add up in weight very significantly, but they could provide a reasonable ground plane for a decent little magnet mount for your portable handheld antenna. That's always good for a chuckle or two. So first, I'd like to, if there's not any questions, you know, I've thrown a bunch of things out there for folks to start thinking about as normal. We haven't talked formally since last year when we did our last roundtable. And sadly, we were really changing direction on the roundtable very significantly to encourage the interaction between the individuals in an EC's group or a DEC's group. And I thought that was going exceptionally well. That was a good place to go out and huddle with folks that are your community leaders in areas, if you will, and talk with them about what your capabilities are, better than just writing it down on paper, better than just putting it into a spreadsheet, have open and live discussions about it. And then we had the ECs and DECs come back with several questions that we put out to the group, asking about capabilities, concerns, thoughts about what they could do to improve, and have the ECs or DECs report back on that. In a forum like this, where it's a solo Zoom meeting, that's going to be very difficult to achieve. So I think instead what we'd like to go out and, or at least what I'd like to go out and consider doing, is have the ECs and the DECs go first, talk about what they believe the strengths are that they have within their group, maybe bring up a couple of points for discussion that would be opportunities to improve, and discuss then from the member perspective, after the ECs or DECs have made their pass, how they could support better and what their goals are for the year, what they might need, most importantly, help on, whether it's training, whether it's someone mentoring them, whether it's considerations for even a new piece of equipment or radio gear. There's lots of opportunities, and with a lot of folks, candidly, staying at home and being at home, they've got a lot more things that they could potentially do to go out and whittle away the hours instead of watching Netflix that a lot of folks are embracing. So maybe there's even an opportunity in these times to go out and really spend some time doing focused activities if we put some focused suggestions forward to go out and create those activities for users. Does that make sense?
Bruce, do you want each EC to raise his hand and then Dave moderates?
That would be great. If that would be possible, that would certainly help me. I'm watching an almost 500 nit laptop screen, that if I can dim it down just a tiny bit, my battery's probably going to last longer, and that would that would take care of me having to go out and look for raised hands and things like that. So yes, that would be appreciated.
All right, let's start with the DECs, I guess, and that would be Fred first.
Good morning, everyone. Can everybody hear me? There we go. I would like to work on, yeah, it's been a challenge being locked down. What I'm trying to work on is, well, as many of you know, the passing of Ed Sack, who was the EC for Coronado, and I feel like Coronado is getting dropped off the map, and the participation is going to be tough for Coronado. But I would like to get representation over there again. The task book sign off, I've met with a couple people, just one-on-one, kind of in an outdoor setting, to get books signed off. But that's a challenge. I would like to get more people working on that, but and then more participation from the South Bay area as far as hams. We've got a lot of hams. If you consider Chula Vista, National City, and just the South Bay area. But right now it's tough. Sending out emails, not getting responses, people being locked down. It's I don't know what else to do as far as that goes. I try to stay active as much as I can with different Zoom meetings and calling people, and sometimes it takes a phone call. Sometimes we have to get away from the texting and the email and actually pick up the telephone and talk to somebody, on the phone. And it seems like we're getting away from a lot of that. It's like all text and email, and then like voice communication just seems to have fallen off the planet here on some things. You can ask my kids, I tell them that all the time. Why don't you pick up the phone that you have in your hand instead of playing games and call the person and talk to them? So anyway, that's what I've got. I'm hoping that it's a better year. I think that the COVID thing is going to be a challenge. I'd be willing to go in and do stuff personally. I'm in good health, but I realize that not everybody's in the same boat that I am. So, and I think the distribution is poor in San Diego as far as the vaccine's concerned. And I think they needed to address pods a long time ago, but it could be more of a county by county kind of a thing. But that's all I've got. Thanks for the floor.
All right, let's start with the ECs, I guess, and unless somebody has some comments on what Fred has been talking about.
So I did have a question. So Fred, and I'm not picking on you by any means, so don't take this that way at all. We're doing a Zoom meeting right now. Has there been any consideration on your side? Do you have enough folks in your group and in your area of responsibility that you think might be willing to have maybe a sidebar once a month just to touch base, if for no other reason, just to check in, make sure that their operational capabilities, of course, are up to date, but most importantly, just to check in, and I mean really check in. I realize they're not family, although we're kind of a weird radio family anyway. That's what amateur radio operators have always been, and weird is an affectionate term. I'm finding that it's useful to keep people engaged by doing just what you had mentioned, literally picking up the phone and calling. But at a minimum, maybe it would be an additional step if you could have a party line, so to speak, have your own Zoom. I know that for those that are not Macintosh fans or not Macintosh inclined, as the case might be, in the latest Windows updates, they've got their new Splinter Cell version of something that's kind of Teams, kind of Skype, that does provide video conferencing, that's instant video conferencing. So if you got a couple of people with a current Windows 10 machine and you're able to get them online, you can pretty much reach out and have a conversation similar to what we're doing right now. not trying to make it overwhelming, not trying to add any burden to what you've already got on your plate, on your calendar, and what you're already doing in your personal life, but just a thought.
Yeah, we actually do that. That's a good idea. I'm not really sure why I didn't think about it for ARES, but we do that for SOBARs. We do since we're not meeting, we do a monthly meeting, but we also do in between the monthly meeting, we do just a get together. It's on a Monday night, but it's about 2 weeks prior or in the middle of the month somewhere. And it's just, there's no agenda. It's just check in, see how everybody's doing. And on a personal note, at least for our club and some of the ARES members, I've actually just called them up on the phone and say, how are you doing? Is there anything you need? Or, if I didn't get them on the phone, I sent them an email, but I tried phone first. So yeah, that's a good idea. I would certainly entertain doing that for the Southern region for ARES. And I think the other thing that's important too, that I didn't mention, is participating in nets so that people know that you're out there. I think I do, 4 a week. And then, being net control, also WinLink. That's as weird as that sounds. And yep, that's an email thing, but doing WinLink drills and just trying to keep as active as possible. So, and thanks to Munir for all he's doing in that. But there's WinLink Wednesdays. The Red Cross has WinLink Thursdays, so there's opportunity there as well.
Very good. And believe me when I tell you, and I'm sure that you already know, and a lot of other folks already know, even when someone says, nope, nothing new is going on, everything's just fine, and you're thinking that maybe they didn't need that call just to touch base. Yeah, we all do. I hate to say that, but we're in that kind of a place right now. There's a lot of nets that have come up over the last year and been started and established over the last year, both on HF as well as Simplex and even many of the local and regional repeater systems. And effectively, they're all being categorized politely as health and welfare nets. It's a place to get together, hear familiar voices, hear the same people, maybe make some new friends and be able to talk about your day, even though it's exceptionally trivial and sometimes boring, and give them a place to just talk and hopefully keep it off of politics, as you might imagine. But those have been very popular. I know a lot of folks that have gravitated toward those, if for no other reason, just to go out and exercise the radio and do things like that. But yeah, I would really encourage just what you had stated. The different nets are good. Obviously, doing some of the other special functions are always good. Keeping people engaged, and I don't want to say this the way it's going to sound, but giving them something purposeful to go out and do. Give them a routine, because the old routines that we've all had are pretty much non sequitur for most of us anyway. Thank you, Fred. Appreciate it. Back to you, Dave.
All right. I do not have any hands up, but the next one I see going down as an EC is Dennis. Go ahead.
Yeah, tough being up there in front of the class, isn't it? Thanks, Dave. No, I have tried to participate in as many nets as possible. Sunday morning, Thursday night, Monday night, a whole variety of them, probably 6 or 7 nets. So my name is out there, name and call. Sorry. Also have kept in touch with folks like John Hammond, who have been in and out of the hospital with COVID. And other than that, really kind of hoping folks will be able to have some public service events so we can get some more task book pages signed off. I know I've got a whole pile of those waiting to go. So that's about it for me.
All right, thanks, Dennis.
All right, when Chris has his hands up, go ahead, Chris.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, just a couple of Well, first a question. Bruce, you had mentioned or brought up quite a few things about what might happen during a call out, a lot of things to consider, but have we had any meetings with our served agency that discusses, hey, if something happened this week, what would that look like for us and how that would help us better prepare?
And that's a difficult question to answer. Have we had any recent meetings? No. We have had we've had discussions with them on and off over the last year, and effectively, and they're kind of, think about this from their perspective too. They're kind of in the same boat. If you've ever worked at the MOC, and I know a lot of you have, and if you've ever worked at county operations, and I know a lot of you have, the functional roles there are pretty close and pretty similar to what you'd be asked to go out and do in the healthcare environment. You know, in the healthcare environment, if you're going out to respond and be part of a call out, as you mentioned, you know, for following the incident command system, they've got all the positions, all the seats, all the same titles that you'd find at the MOC and at county ops. The distinction would be that you're bringing in folks from the outside to work at county ops, you know, and they're sitting in a chair fulfilling a role, maybe multiple parties fulfilling a single title, depending on what the bandwidth needs are. You're in a hospital environment, same thing. What's the difference? The difference would be, are they going to put the incident command group, team, staff, or folks in a separate place where there's less chance of having a problem of being exposed to the virus in the hospital itself? The answer is yes, actually. And there are discussions, at least within my healthcare group, where we would be not utilizing the regular facilities for that. We'd actually be staffing people in a different location, either outside the physical hospital or in some far corner of the administrative portion of it, or even in a nearby admin building, and not actually having the teams in their normal places within the hospital itself. So I know that when we've had our drills, you know, and in some cases the incident command or war room might be in a place that quite literally is somewhere right on one of the floors of patient care. And the discussion has been very clear that they don't want to have people in that. It's going to be hard enough, as you might already imagine, to have people in a room where they're normally almost elbow to elbow and shoulder to shoulder working together on tasks and problems. And now we're supposed to maintain spacing, distance, talking about barriers and isolation, and effectively having what I was jokingly in one of our meetings that we had with them, it's almost like watching Get Smart, where you've got the cones of silence dropping over you. Everybody would like to have their own bubble with their own oxygen supply and not have to worry about things, but you know, it's not going to be able to be like that. And even county operations is having that challenge in discussing what they're going to be doing, not just San Diego, but other county operations folks, Orange, LA, et cetera. I've sat in on some of the other meetings that have happened up and down the coast where they're discussing how they would organize the room and what they would do to go out and maximize the protection, but still keep the regular functionality and cadence capabilities up to where they should be. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be, I hate to say the words, but probably very much ad hoc when you drop into this. They're hard discussions. The dynamics of what you would be dropping into or working in are very fluid, and I don't think anything is set in stone. And candidly, I'm going to tell you that other than the social distancing guidelines that they already have for meetings, this is going to be ugly. I mean, we've got literally meeting rooms where it says no more than 2 people in a meeting room. And that's if the meeting room is large enough that the 2 people can literally be 6 feet apart from each other. Imagine trying to do what we normally do in an incident command scenario in the space that we normally function out of. To say that this is going to be awkward is a understatement, a gross understatement, but we'll figure out whatever we need to figure out when we get to that point. I'm hoping that we don't have the need for it, but all you can do is be prepared with your own PPE. I would expect that they're going to provide you with PPE as well. And again, to what degree they're going to be able to implement isolation from each other and still be able to be a functional group remains to be seen.
All right, we have Curtis has his hand up. Go ahead, Curtis.
Okay, let me get my video going here. There we go. Oops, was there for a minute. Yeah, I was worked with Fred. Fred's my the SDC for my area. To my knowledge, I only have 3 people, and 2 of them are, one's in Team Rubicon and the other one's in the Red Cross. So I know one of the individuals is in this meeting, or he was in this meeting, and so two of them are also part of SOBAR, so we get together that way. I haven't had too much contact with either of those 2 guys. I mean, I try to communicate with email. I haven't tried to call them. I guess I'll have to get their phone numbers so I can call just to touch bases. So like Fred said, we got together and signed off some of our task books, and the Zoom meeting works. I mean, we do Zoom meeting with SOBARs, and it works. Not everybody can make it, and it's a challenge. So I mean, that's what I do. I mean, I participate in the nets. I participate in as many WinLink drills as I can, and some of the WinLink drills I try to do. One of them is with a guy in Australia, just to, you know, I mean, it's all internet, so it doesn't. I transmit it in HF, and then it goes to him through the internet probably. But you know, I mean, it's just the way to keep myself busy. I'm pretty much available if somebody wants to contact me, and I guess that's about it. I mean, life is still very busy, and you don't have much time, but we do what we can. Back to you, Dave.
All right, thanks, Curtis.
Thanks, Curtis.
Mike, next in the list here.
Okay, can you hear me okay? I've been having audio problems.
You're in good shape.
Okay,
You're
good. Well, there's about a half a dozen things I just wanted to mention here, more than anything else. Just Rob had mentioned using our repeater on Palomar Mountain, the VCARC repeater on Palomar Mountain as a backup. Actually, we just put a cavity bandpass filter on that, and it's sounding pretty much bulletproof right now. We've got about a week's worth of backup battery and solar panels on there anytime the power goes out. And of course, there's DMR on there as well as the VHF. So, and of course, that's open to everybody. But anyway, there was couple things I wanted to mention here beyond that. We've gotten heavily involved with a group called CalDART. It's not the domestic animal thing, but it's the disaster airlift and recovery team. The bunch of pilots that are flying supplies up and down the West Coast. And they're very active, and they asked us to be part of their communications team. And I mentioned to them that ARES is a group that we should be able to call upon, and they kind of looked at it and said, oh, you'll never get ARES involved. They're too involved with too many other groups. And of course, they're mostly based out of Northern California all the way up to Washington. But the group down here, I said, I think you're very much mistaken. I think we can get the ARES groups involved with that. But anytime that there is an issue, then we need to have people go out to the various airports for communications. And so anyway, we're still trying to refine all of that. But that's something that I'd like to see ARES. Our club is involved with that, but I'd like to see ARES involved with that also. And just one quick little plug for Kevin, K6KMH. He's pretty much finished all of his task book. He still has the community service thing to finish also, and I'd like to see him get that done as soon as anybody is available. And something I'll mention to you later, Dave, because I'd like him to become one of our AECs out here as well. The other thing regarding vaccinations, the San Diego Medical Reserve Corps is behind a lot of that right now. And they've called upon the MRC, which of course Rhonda and I are both members of, for giving vaccinations. So they're talking about setting up pods actually, because going into the hospitals is going to be extremely difficult, as Bruce has mentioned. The other thing too is most of the medical facilities, the clinics and so forth, are not prepared for being able to store the vaccinations. So they're going to have to do some customized type things, which is pods. And they're talking about setting them at least one pod in each community. And they were looking at, as I recall, something like 12 pods being set up around San Diego County. And they're talking about trying to give, I think it's a little bit beyond their capability, 5,000 injections a day, which isn't going to happen, but they're hoping that, and they've called upon us who are capable of giving the injections to work 2 8-hour shifts a month to be able to cover all this. But anyway, that's being worked on. The other thing also is our trailer, which a few of the ARES members are aware of, is just about complete. In fact, it's fully operational now. And Cal Dart is going to be, we're going to be using that with Cal Dart, and it's also available for ARES, obviously, as kind of like a North County, like a command center. We've got full virtually every form of radio communications in there, and also search and rescue capabilities and so forth with APRS, WinLink capabilities, HF, VHF, UHF, DMR. And if you need help, Bruce, with DMR, let me know. Looking at your sign there. But anyway, I was just going to mention those couple of things, and anyway, that's kind of what we're up to.
Thank you, Mike. The sign is a joke. I put that up there just to go out and have folks have something to laugh at. I had considered putting up the current 60-watt Baofeng advertisement that's in great public press out there, but I figured that would be a little overreaching for this meeting and people would start asking me where they could buy them. So I chose not to do that. Hey, I want to share with you just a little humor. And I know of the DART organization. I know of their mission, and I had heard of them previously, but it was interesting, a little over a year ago, before we got into the current situation that we've been in for a very, very long time. It feels like much more than a year. I was in an EMS meeting that we had hosted at our facilities, and folks that were from different walks of life, that are physicians, clinicians, doctors, nurses, and then the ancillary support folks were all in this meeting. Effectively, this is like the Cal EMS outreach, if you will. There was a representative there that was sitting next to me that I didn't know. That was from DART. And as you do your normal introductions to a meeting, they went around the room. Most of the folks knew each other. There were some new faces. There's always a mix. There's always kind of a resurgence of people that are new coming in, and some folks that have other things that they're occupied with and maybe have moved on. So there's always some turnover, but most of the folks in the room knew each other. This gentleman happened to be sitting next to me. I did not know who he was, and I got to be candid, although I've got his business card that he gave me. I don't remember the name. And he introduced himself as being in charge of DART and explained why they were there. And, he did a good job of explaining what their mission was that they tried to achieve and tried to promote. And he was asked by some of the other folks, who else they worked with regionally. And he started rattling off names pretty quickly, to be candid. We worked directly with Red Cross. We worked directly with county operations. We worked directly with all of these folks. And as he was saying those things, people that were in the room that represented those agencies were kind of perking their ears up and looking a little funny. And then the last thing he said was, and we work very closely with San Diego ARES. Now, we've been working with them for quite a while. So he finished up his dialogue and description, and then they moved on to me next to do my introductions, and I introduced myself. And when I said I was representing and the section emergency coordinator for San Diego ARES, he kind of did the very startled and panicked look on his face. And I know I've never heard of him and never talked to him before. So that was kind of an interesting place to be. I would like to be able to work with them and help them in whatever their functional needs and support roles are. But to my knowledge, we haven't had any discussions with them. And that wasn't exactly what was being promoted that day. And that was probably just a little over maybe a year and a half ago, roughly. So hopefully we can become engaged and be able to support them as they need. Back to you, Dave.
All right, sounds good. Ron, I think you're next on the list.
Okay, thank you, Dave. I'm up in the Fallbrook area, and we've been keeping in touch with the most people. ARES type members are also in our club or are interested in emergency type stuff. So we've been having Zoom meetings and then having our nets, our weekly nets, to keep in touch that way. So been making that work, and people can always, we have our social group here on our repeater. Recently, we did have a fire up here, the creek fire, and they called out to evacuate 7,000 people. I don't think that many, not many left. Interesting situation. In the middle of the night, it started 11:30, 11 o'clock at night, down in the Duluth area. And it happened during a wind event. So there was some Santa Ana going on. Luckily, it mostly blew by Fallbrook, but the evacuations were mostly on the west side of Fallbrook. Went across the Naval Weapons Station, up the drainage towards Camp Pendleton housing and stuff. Since it was the middle of the night, did not do any call up or hear from the fire department. Location it was in, it it would be hard for spotters to keep track of it because it was on Camp Pendleton. So mostly used scanner traffic to keep up to date on what was going on. So that was, a little bit interesting. And then prior to that, we had public service, public shutdowns of the electrical up here. So that's what we've been doing. Have had some contact with the fire department, with their comms chief that takes care of their communications on another matter. So have had some discussions with them, but nothing on what would happen during a call out or anything. So kind of going on a case by case basis and being flexible on what you're doing. Up here also, we run a internet scanners on the internet and our club repeater on a feed. So that's where a lot of people get information. and you could tell when the reverse 911s went out, the listeners on the feed started climbing. So at the peak, we had, and this is in the middle of the night, we had 360 listeners in on that. So that's kind of a way we serve the community by giving first-hand ham reports, and if not, the repeater, the scanner feed, and then maybe comments and clarifying terms and stuff that's heard over the scanners into people that's not probably normally used to listening to scanner traffic and know what they actually mean. Okay, back to you, Dave.
All right, thanks, Ron. Next one we have a hand up is Chris. Back to Chris. Chris, did you have another comment?
Yeah, sorry. Multiple mute buttons here on my station. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're fine now.
Okay, so I was wondering if there's any new members. I like the idea of having a Zoom session with just the people that are within the Penasquitos area. Might be good. I know that we also have a radio comms, but it might be good to have a more formal discussion with folks within. So that's one of the things. Is there any new members attending today, and what EC might they be under?
I think that was going to be our next topic here now, but I think we have all the ECs that are here. I think have all had a chance to speak. Do we have any new members here? Anybody that's new that's never been here before?
I guess we'll take that as a no. Dave's on the phone right now. Yeah, the other thing that I was thinking about was, and this is riffing off something I heard from a national disaster preparedness expert, was if there was an event, an emergency, what are the things that we would be saying to ourselves that we had wished we had done before that? Because and to be prepared. And one of the things that she just gave an example of is, hey, exchanging business cards and trying to build relationships during an emergency is probably not the time to be doing that. So just wondering if there's any other thoughts among the ECs around things that we can be doing that's maybe non-radio related that we should be focusing on for the next year.
Bruce, any comments, any thoughts?
I was trying not to dominate the dialogue. He said other ECs. Come on, man. Trying to keep it interactive with the rest of the folks. You know, I don't have any opposition to ECs, DECs, and we've talked about this, in having their own mini versions of drills, communication exercises, even events, as good, bad, or otherwise as it might be, you know, even having your own version of, let's do a 213 session. I say again, let's learn how to fill out paper forms. A couple of people are smiling at that. I'm not intoning the individual quite right, but you guys know who I'm talking about. The potential for your own individual exercises is limited only by your imagination. You guys can do, and gals can do, anything that you want. You might consider, and this would be my recommendation in particular, I know we've had a lot of new folks that have come on board. Candidly, I am sharing in the greeting messages that Rob is so gracious in sending out. Every time we have a new applicant come in, we send them a welcome message, welcome aboard message, etc. What I'm not confident that we're doing so well is getting them assigned to someone in their geographic area that would be their EC or DEC. And I think that would probably be my only thought that I have for the onboarding process or a change in onboarding. It's great that you welcome people. We're letting them know that we're not having our regular meetings, as you might imagine, for obvious reasons. We let them know about the Zoom meetings that we're having. We give them other details and links to the websites and other critical information. Basically, it's their boot camp to get them started. But I'm also thinking that paired along with that, it might enhance that experience to get them connected to the EC or DEC in their area. And that way, those folks can have that conversation. It could be the additional onboarding, welcome, greeting, any questions asked. You know, everyone here can answer questions on the email forum, on the Google Groups.io forum. Everybody is welcome to go out and chip in, help out, nurture, mentor. Elmer, anyone else, that's all good. But I'd like to really see the new folks that are coming in geographically to, you know, not be assigned per se, but get them introduced properly to the folks that they're going to be immediately working with and should be as part of our, you know, organizational structure goes. Does that make sense?
It does. One of the things that we're missing with the physical meetings that we're having was that, if you will, the breakout room, and something we may be able to replicate here on a monthly basis is we were having breakouts where, hey, join your EC for a quick breakout to do sign-offs, ask questions, those sorts of things. That may be another alternative way to me firing off my own EC meetings is, hey, if you're going to be here anyway, why don't we set aside time for set breakout rooms for each of the ECs in Zoom. And that might help certainly the new people learn about what's going on, because as a new member a while back, I learned a lot, not just coming to the meeting, but also just listening to all the side conversations and asking, you know, people like Roger, Noel, and, you know, anyone else who showed up, just a question that's like, hey, what does this mean? What does that mean? So just a thought there about how we can maybe get more interaction, because it's hard with a large group like this in Zoom to manage that.
It's something I'm going to look at, see if we can, how to get Zoom, some breakout rooms set up so we can do that and take advantage of that in the future. It's just probably a good idea. It might help, you know, maybe after the initial meeting is over to do that and to break out. Two people that haven't been here before. Noel, go ahead. Let you hop in here.
Oh, you know, I've been a long time member, but you guys were talking about task books, and I don't think I ever had the time to do one of those.
All right. I will have Rob send you one so you can get on there, and if you can hook up with Rob, he has the latest version. The other person here is Dan Sohn from San Joaquin Valley. He's the SEC for that area. Dan, thanks for joining us. You're welcome anytime, and glad you're here.
Well, first of all, I've got to applaud San Diego ARES, because I'm here because of your conscious and subconscious basic outreach to the rest of amateur radio with regard to ARES and WinLink is how you got me. And I'm the, how do I say this? I've never been an EC. I started as the assistant section emergency coordinator for the San Joaquin Valley section about 4 years ago. And then finally the section manager, who's now a silent key, said after 3 years, well, that's not it. That's it. He's not even returning my calls. You're the SEC now, last December of 2019. So I've been thrown into some very hot water, and I'm trying to earn the trust of everybody slowly and cautiously. And actually, just by listening to what their concerns and interests are and trying to be responsive while using my career experiences to ensure everybody's getting the kind of attention that'll be most beneficial, things are starting to happen that are just alarmingly effective, in my view, by endowing, first of all, there's only, I think, 3, quote, ECs. There's only ECs in 4 of the counties, of the 12 counties in the section, that are still here after me being in the SEC for a year. And I've been very selective about that. Sometimes it's better not to have an EC than to have a toxic one. And I'm breaking down the barriers between the counties to the best of my ability. And that's just remarkably effective because some counties have active, vibrant groups that are doing a lot. And they could have a county right next to them where there are lots of people who would and are doing it, but not in their own county. So I'm trying to figure out how to address all of that. And I'm trying to not get too disgusted with some of the national impetus that is still, how do I say this, still has trademark rights to the name ARES, and do whatever I can to sort of integrate and be inclusive with cert units. And there's no reason why they should want to be or have to be amateurs. They're certainly welcome to be, but there's no question that they could use amateurs that are supportive instead of competitive. I think you guys are doing a really good job of this, listening to all of your reports today. So I appreciate being allowed to participate. And I'm going to be selling your basic WinLink introductory curricula, which I don't know if it was you or Oliver that hooked it up with the exercise steps labeled the same as your YouTube videos. But I'm more than a little convinced that that's the fastest way to get people up to speed with WinLink. And I'm going to do what I can to support that in this section far and wide. I had to learn WinLink 3 different times, and it wasn't until the most recent one that I took it seriously, because I suddenly realized in 2018, listening to the Hamvention FCC forum, that WinLink was really the only digital mode that all of the 8 or 9 other federal agencies that have EMA responsibilities, and I came from an agency in a department that has quite a lot of that, are all saying, well, the lingua franca that they want to see in amateur radio volunteers is WinLink Express. And that's become truer almost every month since then. So kudos to all of you, and thank you for letting me sit in. And well, anytime any one of you want to, let me know, and you'll be invited to. We have a Zoom meeting every 3rd Sunday at 5:30 p.m. Unless there's something really organized that needs to be shared widely, it's sort of an open forum. And I try not to direct it or control it. I try to let the ECs and their people ask each other the questions that they haven't been able to over the last month. And out of that, a team is emerging. And, one of our ECs is also a CERT leader in Fresno County, for instance. So we're learning about that more and more every day. We got renewing a relationship with the NOAA Weather Office in Hanford, which was the cause for, I will say it, the best situated repeater in the section at 7,400 feet in Sequoia Kings Canyon National Park, co-located with the Park Service's repeater. I knew the comm people there when I was the branch chief in Yosemite. He's very, very competent individuals, and the reason they're in that same shelter as the park's repeaters is on behalf of NOAA, which is the weather forecast region that the park is located in. And it's just, how do I say it? There are former valid, viable connections in almost every direction I look, and just dusting off people's consciousness and getting them to talk to each other is about my highest goal, being a, quote, coordinator. When I'm done with that and everybody's taking really good care of themselves, I'll learn more about what I want to learn more about to become a better amateur. So that's the story there, long and short of it. Haven't been on HF since I could no longer climb my tower back in 2001. It's something I have to do, and I'm not going to do it by climbing the tower. I'm going to do it every other way, all of which I can pack up in 10 minutes and put in the truck and take with me, along with 200 amp hours of lithium ferrous phosphate battery and, 1 or 2 or 3 160 watt solar panels and charge controllers. So that's kind of where I'm at, and you can throw anything at me you ever want to, and you're always going to be welcome in the San Joaquin Valley section. You've got a passcode to being comforted just by saying SDG ARES. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Dan. We're glad to have you here, and you're welcome anytime you see the notice of the meeting coming up. You're more than welcome to join in. We're glad to have you here. Anybody have anything else for the good of the group this morning in anything on any topic?
I want to call out someone really quick. Gary, if you're still on, W5WYQ. He's one of our folks that was a very strong supporting member. He has moved out of the area, but he is vicariously supporting us.
Hey, Bruce, this is Gary, Whiskey 5, Whiskey Yankee, Quebec. How can I help?
I liked your idea that you put into the group chat. If you're able to hear me, I got a warning that my connection's unstable.
Yeah, you're unstable. Your connection's fine.
Well, that's normal then.
Yeah. I just wanted to scratch at the interoperability edge. There's a lot I think we could do to reach across city boundaries, to reach across mode boundaries, to reach across this radio and that radio to build a better picture. And we've said a lot about that, so I don't think more needs to be said right now. I just wanted to throw that emphasis on the campfire here. The last thing is, at a Tri-City drill a couple years back, 3-4 years back, we did a routine where we were able to station a ham at the nurse's station to communicate back to the EOC. Well, it's very unlikely we're going to be anywhere near a nurse's station anytime in the near future, even less likely than the EOC. And I think we could work on a model where we either have a single ham in the EOC working with the group outside, or maybe the hospital could stand up one of their VoIP phones to a post in the parking lot, so that the extended group could be helpful even if they're not inside the facility. So that's what I was throwing on there.
No, and I like that idea. And I even like the idea of, from the radio perspective, and we have talked about this, although we've not drilled or done anything to work our way through it to develop a workflow. The hospital groups, as an example, both Sharp and Scripps, they have their own radios. They actually have their own on-premise two-way communications, multifunction. Usually it's one radio, number of channels, sometimes DMR, sometimes analog, that they will use for security comms, operational facility comms, even food and nutrition services, and then last but not least, emergency or disaster support. So when they spin up an IC center or station or location, they usually have the radios going as well. So if cell phones are not working, the landlines are not working, the inter-building communications may or may not be working, everyone theoretically has got their handheld at that point. So if they need to, they can hear from, talk to, and interoperate with the rest of the staff at the hospital. I'm actually kind of thinking, building on what you typed in the chat, that it may not be a bad idea to go out and think about a workflow that would include having ARES issued one of the hospital radios, or maybe a couple of them. And that way, if we need to maintain physical separation out of concern for the virus and or other environmental circumstances, maybe that would be a good way to get us in a more isolated place, posture, or position, and still be able to go out and support some of the basic needs and functions, at least know when we need to be called in, or, we're being called off the benches, so to speak, in the bullpen, and they actually need us to go out and help them out with something. So I actually like that workflow. Totally agree on the other aspects. We've talked for a number of years in trying to interoperate with the groups and other folks outside of San Diego and Imperial County. Obviously we've been working with Oliver up north a little bit. We keep trying to go out and talk to folks that are in Orange County. They seem to be candidly having some challenges in their current orchestration. And I've had their folks reach out to me on more than a few occasions, wishing wistfully that we weren't under the COVID umbrella like we are. They would love to go out and have meetings, dialogues, discussions about how they can build on what we've been through, what we've experienced, what we've developed over a number of years, and, you know, kind of kickstart or reset what they're doing up in those areas. We've had similar light discussions and exchanges with folks that are in either San Bernardino and or Riverside. I'd love to be able to pursue that. You know, to me, it's more than just our regional effort. We've got pretty strong body of regional folks. We've got a regular number of people that participate on a regular basis. The numbers ebb and flow a little bit year after year in membership, but you know, I know beyond the actual registered members that are here in the roster that we've got another layer of, I don't want to call them spontaneous participants, or spontaneous volunteers, but I know of at least another layer of probably between 30 to 60 people that would be very strong supporters if I put the call out, that are not necessarily directly ARES related, but have tremendous capabilities, both from a skill and or a support hardware perspective, from a radio gear perspective. So I know that exists. I'm never comfortable with what we have to offer and what we have to bring to the table. It's always going to be constantly evolving and constantly growing, hopefully toward a positive direction. But I definitely want to start working things beyond our sphere of immediate influence. And again, the inroads we've made with Oliver over the last year or so have been very good. I want to continue that. I want to continue looking at the opportunities of some of the other groups. And candidly, some of the other groups may not be ready and may not see this as being their support role function or where they want to be. They do have their weekly nets. They're on the air on Sunday mornings, along with a lot of the other folks on HF. But beyond the immediate check-ins and what they do, there really isn't as much organization or involvement in their communities that I sense that we've developed over about the last 10 years down here. So maybe an opportunity for them as well to kind of do different things. We'll see. Other thoughts, other ideas, other just suggestions or anything else, especially when it comes to the participant and volunteer perspective to the ECs and DECs that we should be talking about?
Hey, Dave, Munir's had his hand up for a while.
That's where I was just going. Munir, go ahead.
Hey, so what I would like, I know I've been like doing some experimentation over the holidays about like going up on various like I guess like hilltops that we can easily drive up to. And I guess this is more of a WinLink thing, but like I was thinking like it might be like useful to like as we get like more and more like gateway stations on this side of the border, like it would be, I guess, useful to like play out like scenarios where, say, one area of San Diego has like no like that, say that like particular like WinLink station, a gateway that's like close to that area is like not accessible. Maybe like play out scenarios where someone drives up to one of those tall hilltops and like acts as a digipeater for I guess that area that's non-function, that has the down like gateway, so that they can still communicate with some other gateway, for instance. I'm thinking that might be useful to like, I guess, drill and practice on as well.
Just making some notes here. Some good thoughts there. Something we could look at, definitely. Dennis, you had your hand up as well.
Thank you, Dave. I just wanted to reinforce what I think Bruce brought up earlier about being involved in linking up with community radio groups and disaster groups such as Poway and Tierra Santa. Those are the two I'm most familiar with. And it's perhaps something that I should do as an EC is formalize some form of arrangement with Tierra Santa right across the canyon from me in terms of being able to support with HF and WinLink activity if they have issues within Tierra Santa that they needed to get further out of the area, particularly out of the county.
Very good. So is everybody ready for next weekend? So, you know, honestly, this is a twofold opportunity for those that are interested in stretching their legs and doing something while staying within the newly implemented 120-mile radius from home travel ban in the wonderful state of where we are. I would encourage folks to use this on a discretionary basis and only based on the fact that you're doing things safely. You know, in addition to being able to work from home, and again, as a reminder, I want to make sure that folks that are in an EC or DEC's area, that they're able to communicate with their immediate upstream responsible party for ARES. You know, let's make sure that we're also trying to reach out the ECs and DECs that are outside of that area as well. Again, strongly encourage the fact that you're able to work from home, but you know what? It may also be worthwhile standing outside your front door or walking to a nearby park, walking up the street to a hill, maybe jumping in your car and seeing what your mobile's capable of doing compared to your base or what you run from home. And again, it's an opportunity to not just make a contact, put a point in the log if you're actually logging for the event and participating in the event. You know, make more than one contact with your EC. Do it from home, do it from the mobile, do it from a handheld. And I'm just throwing things out there and making things up as I go along. This is where you get the opportunity to go out and play more than once, because in theory, you're going to have, again, higher population of folks on the air, and realizing, yes, very generously, it's the January ARRL event that's happening, not June, which is where everybody, even for a matter of minutes, will come out and play because it's June and it's the big event of the year. Take advantage of the January, not just to find folks inside and outside your area, inside and outside of San Diego County. For about the last 2 weeks, we've had really good conditions between San Diego and Santa Barbara. So 250-mile path on VHF and UHF, 2 meters and 440 specifically. 6 meters, not so good. Ducting and inversion layers are good for 6, but not always this close in. Hawaii, yes. San Diego to Santa Barbara, not necessarily so much. But seriously, over the last couple of weeks, I've been very surprised. We've had really good conditions up and down the coast. So what's going to happen with that as well, to kind of keep people encouraged, but also brace for impact, the more folks that we have on the air, obviously, the more collisions you're going to have, and especially if you're using FM. So the reminders for FM, number one, be really patient. When you're communicating to somebody else, whether it's your EC, DEC, or someone outside the area, you know, the full call sign exchange on both sides is probably pretty important, because you may think that you're talking to someone that's up in LA, and at the cadence that you're interacting with them, they may sound like they're interacting with you, but they're actually talking to someone local and they never heard you in the first place. That happens very frequently. And for those that have more capable stations, it's really hard to filter through those layers, especially when you're working with FM capture effect in general. Keep the squelch down. If you're waiting for someone to break the squelch, that might be convenient, but you're going to miss a lot of the weaker signal opportunities. It's not a repeater. You're not waiting for the repeater to always reliably break the squelch. You're listening for fringe stations that may bubble in for very short periods of time, and you're trying to take advantage of those as well. The other recommendation is, if you've got a multi-mode radio, and a lot of you do, where it's either a 7100, 7000 series, you know, one of the Yaesus like the 857, 897, et cetera, even on a base station antenna, you will probably be remotely and pleasantly surprised to be able to work some folks on sideband on both the 2 meter and 440 bands, even if you got a vertical. Not particularly unusual to be able to work at least up into LA and certainly in Orange County and maybe even Points East. So I would always stretch and do things like that as well. And we'll probably, I know Rob's already put the email out regarding the event and some suggestions, and it's pretty well a repeat of what we've done previously, but you know, we'll probably pass some other guidelines out there as well. Rob, you got your hand up.
Bruce, thanks. Just following up on Munir's earlier comment about hilltops. The middle of the comp plan, there's a list of 11 simplex high points that we've pre-designated that we might be able to, or might need in an emergency. And what I'll do is I'll make a note here, adding to the comp plan that it's for voice or also WinLink VHF links. So if anybody else has any other updates to the comp plan, names have changed or procedures have changed, let me know, and we'll get that done in the next couple of weeks. The comp plan is 13 pages long right now. We can make it longer or shorter, but it's here to serve us, and it's a living document. Thank you, K6RJF.
Thank you, Rob. So on that same topic, so the other consideration that I would throw at you folks, and just food for thought, for those that are thinking about going to a hilltop, either for a contest or to play WinLink or play one of the other digital modes, I want to make sure that we're at least having a discussion about doing that carefully, if you will, lacking a better description. The comp plan for what we're doing and what we're supporting, I hope will be very much in support of what we do locally and regionally. And what I'm trying to avoid is at least what I'm suggesting that we try to avoid, trying to word this carefully, is that we immediately think that, hey, let's go out, we've got an emergency, let's go out and put a high power station up on one of the hilltops so we can take care of San Diego and do things in San Diego. And when we're doing that, we're potentially adding to the noise floor and the shared frequency noise floor that we have throughout the region as well. There should be, in my opinion, much like repeater coordination, which I know to some of us is very important and to some of us is kind of a laughable thing in California, but like repeater coordination, I want to make sure that we've got some reasonable discussions and workflows in place that will prevent us from having collisions with other folks that are also trying to use the same exact shared frequencies for similar functions. And I think that's going to be a critical discussion going forward when we start having dialogues with our peers in other regions and outside of San Diego and Imperial County. Super easy to go out and park something up on a hilltop that's putting out 50 or 100 watts, and now you've got more than just local and regional coverage. You've got coverage that could be extending all the way up into the Bay Area if you're on HF easily. You could have coverage that now suddenly extends out to Arizona, Nevada, et cetera, unintentionally. And again, when we're talking about shared usage, shared frequencies, things like that, in some cases, especially on VHF and UHF, that can potentially become more of a train wreck than beneficial very quickly. So I think that's going to require some additional discussion and development to be sure. Let's get our ducks in a row locally so we can start having those dialogues with our peer SECs and other section managers in and around the region. And I think we'll be much better off universally as an ARES organization, not just San Diego, but throughout the Southwestern US if we go out and do that. I don't have anything else. That was just kind of closing thoughts based on what we were talking about.
All right, I really don't have anything else. I think we've pretty well covered everything this morning. Good meeting, 2 hours. It's a long one for us. But I think the idea of some breakout rooms might be a good idea. Maybe we can work on doing that. Something I will look at and look into. Does anybody have anything else for the good of the group this morning? All right, since I don't see any hands up or any other comments here, we'll go ahead and close the meeting, and we'll get this posted hopefully later today.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you being on board this morning. And thanks for your patience on the delay of game. Have a great
Thanks,
weekend.
Bruce. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Bruce, could you give me a call when you get time?
Will do.
Dennis?